No, some of you aren't getting it. Do you see that? That is a precision strike. That is what the occupation is capable of when they're trying to target one area, one apartment. That is a multi-story building, and they only took out one apartment. Do you want to know who they were targeting? This is who they were targeting. These babies were 4 days old. This is a photo of them right after they were born. You see, beautiful, tiny, newborn. Yeah, they were targeting them, their mom, and their grandmother. The father had left to go get their birth certificates. He wasn't there. Do you know what they have to do to carry out a strike like that? They use a very specific kind of JDAM missile that's got a very low yield, and it requires that they point a laser at their target, which means that they have to have reconnaissance. They use infrared to see into the building. They've shown us before. They can see who is in there, and they can determine whether they are male or female or adult or child. They determine it based off of body heat and shape. There were 4 people in that apartment. 2 of them were 4 days old. One of them was their mom, and the other was their grandmother. They knew that he wasn't there. They specifically targeted 2 newborn babies, their mother and their grandmother. Why? Dr. Juman Arfa. She had been posting to her personal Facebook page about the snipers targeting children directly in the head and chest, which she was personally witness to. They killed a woman and her children and her mother to keep her silent. They had just gotten the birth certificates for Acer and Azel. And this is what the father saw when he got home. He didn't find out that they were all gone until he got to the hospital. He was still holding their birth certificates. With full knowledge and full intent, they targeted 2 newborn babies. And the White House is waiting for them to investigate themselves.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Hope everyone could hear that video. We don't have any issues. As you can see, again, I am here alone once again tonight. That's no big deal. It's just Abby had a bit of an issue came up with a friend in need there, so she had to go support her. Someone's, not to be giving away someone's details or whatever, but someone's mother's having to be moved to hospice care, and so they're just a little bit in distress, and so Abby's gonna be there for them through that transition there. And so I said, it's fine, go ahead. You don't need to, this podcast thing that we're doing, not that it's unimportant, but certainly there are things that we need to do for each other, sacrifices we might need to make. So I'm happy to take on the show by myself tonight so that we can be there for each other in real life, not just talk about it, but be about it. So thank you for being here, Jacqueline. Good to see you. Anyone else watching? Appreciate you guys. Like, share, and subscribe, please. We are hoping to build up our viewer base here so that maybe we can get some things launched a little bit more properly here. But apparently, as far as the rules work, we need something like 50 subscribers on everybody's channel here. So I'm not really prone on pitching myself much, but here is my YouTube channel. So if you guys wouldn't mind going to subscribe, it's at Nihilo Nostrum. Trying to get that up to 50 subscribers. So appreciate you guys, anyone who's listening out there. So today we are going to be getting into some of this geopolitics that's going around. Lots to talk about. A little bit, so much happening so quickly, and everything's being kind of kept under wraps. So it's a little bit tricky. As much as there might be news coming out, there's a lot of things that are being, cards that are being kept close to the chest right now. So everyone's kind of, it's like Schrodinger's World War III. I thought I was thinking about that a while ago, but I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else. That's what it feels like to me. So, wanted to start off today talking about Israel and Gaza. Let me just share my screen here. So a couple days ago, on Tuesday, uh, Hezbollah launched some airstrikes. So Hezbollah launches airstrikes on sensitive Israeli military sites after Hamas rocket attack fails. I'm sure this is kind of already old news for some people, but just in case you haven't been following as much, um, it's all kind of important to try and keep these little stories, keep abreast of what's going on here. So this came after Hamas launched two M90 rockets from Gaza towards Tel Aviv, one of which fell in the sea and the other failed to reach Israeli territory. Tensions in the Middle East have been high since the killings of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukur. So, in a show of coordinated attacks by Iran-backed groups in the Middle East, Hezbollah on Tuesday said it launched a series of strikes against sensitive Israeli military sites, claiming that one of its missiles hit a group of Israeli troops near a site moments after Hamas's M90 rocket attack on Tel Aviv failed to make an impact. In short statements, Hezbollah claimed it targeted the Israeli army's technical and espionage equipment at the Al-Samaka, Ramia, and Miskav Am sites, according to Iranian state media. Hezbollah said its operations were conducted in support of the steadfast Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and in support of their brave and honorable resistance, and that one of its missile attacks hit a group of Israeli troops around an Israeli military site near the settlement of Matat. This came after Hamas launched two M90 rockets from Gaza towards Tel Aviv, one of which fell in the sea and the other failed to reach Israeli territory. So the thing about that, as much as it doesn't sound like, it sounds like a bit of a nothing burger story, the whole thing to be pointing out here is that Israel, after having invaded months ago, after having done all of this butchering, should be, you would think, theoretically able to prevent rocket attacks like this from coming from Gaza at all. So they may have failed to hit their target, but the fact that they're still able to be launching rocket attacks demonstrates to the world that the Israeli military has failed to quell the resistance there, to actually achieve its military objectives. So that's kind of the reading in between the lines there. So, because if you want to be just believing the propaganda, a lot of people will just say, "Oh, look, they can't even hit a single target accurately," and that's, you gotta try and give them credit where credit's due. So, yeah, according, I don't know why they do this. They repeat the information so many times, just wasting people, making people read the detail multiple times. So we have bombed the city of Tel Aviv and its suburbs with two M90 missiles in response to the Zionist massacres against civilians and deliberate displacement of our people, said Hamas al-Qassam brigades in a statement on Tuesday. There were no reports of casualties in Israel. This came after Israeli airstrikes killed 19 Palestinians in the central and southern Gaza Strip on Tuesday, medics said. One strike killed 6 people in Deir al-Balah. Apologies for any butchering of these place names, including a mother and her twin 4-day-old babies. This was that TikTok video we just watched at the beginning. While 7 other Palestinians were killed in a strike on a house in the nearby Al-Bureij camp. 4 people were killed in 2 separate strikes on the Al-Maghazi camp in the central Gaza Strip and Rafah in the south. So I know that a lot of these Palestinians are feeling like maybe people in the West are getting a little tired of paying attention to this, what's going on there, and kind of stopped sharing their stories and supporting them. I apologize if I've kind of been a little bit guilty of that myself. I'm finding it very difficult to find ways to support people and maintain my sanity I'm only one person with very meager resources, so I do what I can. I really hope that all of this can come to an end soon. I don't really know what else there is to say at this point. So, Hamas has stuck to its demand that Gaza truce talks focus on a deal already discussed with Israel and mediators rather than starting anew, according to an official after the Tuesday strike. The U.S. said on Monday that it expected peace talks slated for Thursday to go ahead as planned and that a ceasefire agreement was still possible. Yeah, fucking right. So I guess today's Thursday. I don't know if those peace talks took place. I doubt it. If they did, there's nothing going to come of them anyways. I'm pretty sure that if you wanted to have peace talks, you should not have killed Ismail Haniyeh. Okay, there is no chance for peace talks when you're killing the negotiators. Everyone knows that. So our statement the other day was clear. What is needed is the implementation, not more negotiation, said the Hamas official, who declined to be named owing to the sensitivity of the issue. A ceasefire deal would aim to end fighting in Gaza and ensure the release of Israeli hostages held in the enclave in return for many Palestinians jailed by Israel. Hamas wants a deal to end the war, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it can only end when Hamas is eradicated. These negotiations between the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt have gone on for months with no end in sight, owing to crucial differences between Israel and Hamas. So I'm going to stop the article there. Check in on you guys. Hello, Steve. Thanks for coming. Thanks for subscribing, Jacqueline. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, Abby was gonna try to make it here, but then it just didn't seem like it was the right thing to do. Right? Somebody needed her support, and I didn't need her as much as her friend there. So I appreciate her being able to, you know, support someone in their time of need instead of just people who don't actually need it as much. So okay, so I think I'm going to pivot from that article to this one over here because I've got plenty of things to talk about and I didn't want to get too bogged down on any one article. So Israel has achieved the maximum it can militarily in Gaza. So we just finished the last paragraph talking about how Netanyahu refuses to negotiate until he sees the eradication of Hamas. But this is an article from the New York Times is coming out, basically saying that Netanyahu is not going to get what he wants, right? But we'll get into it. Former Israeli military ombudsman says the war of attrition that has been going on for almost a year has caused Israel to lose the world. So it's interesting. As much as I can say that would be just my opinion. I feel like the former Israeli military ombudsman is a little bit more is a little bit more relevant in this case, and he would say the same thing. So I appreciate that little piece of anecdotal evidence. So senior American officials believe that Israel has achieved the maximum it can militarily in Gaza, with ongoing Israeli airstrikes increasingly endangering civilians while offering limited prospects of further weakening the Hamas movement in the Strip, the New York Times reported. The newspaper highlighted that as U.S. President Joe Biden's administration intensifies efforts to revive ceasefire talks, a growing number of national security officials assert that while the Israeli military has severely set back Hamas, it is unlikely to completely eliminate the Palestinian group. It cited both current and former American and Israeli officials as suggesting that one of Israel's key objectives, which is the retrieval of around 115 captives still held in Gaza since October 7th, cannot be achieved through military means. Surprise, surprise. What have we been saying all of this time? It is a little bit the kind of thing that nobody really actually wants to be right about. I don't want to be saying I told you so about something like this, but maybe it's still important to do so in the sense that are people ready to listen? I guess not. So I don't know. Israel has been able to disrupt Hamas, kill a number of their leaders, and largely reduce the threat to Israel that existed before October 7th, indicated General Joseph Votel, the former head of U.S. Central Command, in an interview for The Times, claiming that Hamas has been diminished. However, Votel noted that the release of the remaining Israeli captives could be secured only through negotiations. Negotiations which are not going to take place because they are killing negotiators. So, what are you trying to do, Israel? The New York Times said the latest U.S. assessment emerges as Biden administration officials are engaged in diplomatic efforts across the region, seeking to secure a ceasefire agreement and prevent a potential retaliatory strike by Iran and its allies following recent Israeli assassinations against commanders and leaders. There is some serious 4D chess going on right now, and I was kind of thinking that finally, after everything, that this would be the final straw that broke the camel's back, and we would have seen a retaliatory strike by now. I'm a little surprised that nothing has happened yet, but I clearly don't have enough of a awareness of what's going on behind the scenes. It seems like maybe people kind of are expecting things to be extremely, like, people are forgetting that maybe things might be more anticlimactic than they expect. You could put it that way, because it's like that strategy. I forget this, the saying, do nothing and watch your enemy like destroy themselves, basically. That seems like the strategy of Russia and China. And I guess if Iran's allied with them, then maybe they don't really even need to do a retaliatory strike, that the psychological warfare of the threat of one is effective enough to destroy the Israeli economy. You know, they're giving them enough rope to hang themselves, maybe. But then maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part, thinking that all of this can somehow come this close to the brink and still be pulled back and some kind of reasonable solution achieved. I'm not thinking it makes any sense for anyone to be making any predictions. I guess it's just time to wait and see. So the players involved will do their part. So we'll, I think the course of events, inertia, is pulling us into things at this point. Yeah, things are quite unstoppable. So where was I here? Yeah, the Financial Times cited a diplomat familiar with the discussions as saying that the primary challenge lies in whether the U.S. can persuade Israeli occupation Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to take his wins and back down from his additional demands. Everyone knows what Netanyahu doesn't want, but no one knows what he wants, another informed source indicated, except that we had just read in the last article that what Netanyahu wants is the eradication of Hamas, is what he claims, but it's really the Palestinian people. Hamas is the euphemism for the Palestinian people there for him. So we know what he wants. We're not allowed to say what he wants, because what he wants is extremely illegal. One of the messages the officials are expected to deliver is that there is little more Israel can accomplish against Hamas, New York Times mentioned. On Tuesday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lord Austin spoke with Israeli Security Minister Yoav Gallant, with the latter reportedly questioning Prime Minister Netanyahu's objective of a total victory over Hamas. The newspaper said that Austin and other officials in the Biden administration align with Gallant's stance that a ceasefire deal securing the return of the captives is in Israel's best interest. Hamas is largely depleted but not wiped out, and the Israelis may never achieve the total annihilation of Hamas, Ralph Goff, a former senior CIA official with Middle East experience, told The Times. Conversely, retired Israeli Major General Yaakov Amidror argued that Israel still has strategic gains to make on the ground in Gaza. So that's what the far right still has to say in Israel, that there's still work to be done. Warning that if Israel evacuates its forces now, within a year, Hamas will be strong again. Well, this is where, even though they're far-right lunatics, there may be a little bit of kernel of truth to what they're saying there. But of course, that will always be the case, that you're going to have to evacuate your forces now. Hamas will be strong again because you guys lost. Okay, you're going to lose. It's not like Ukraine. It's only a matter of when you're going to admit it. It's not about turning the tide at this point. Okay. Moreover, U.S. officials indicated that although Israel has attempted to damage Hamas's tunnels, it has not succeeded in fully destroying them, noting that while some of the larger tunnel complexes used as command centers have been allegedly neutralized, the network is far more extensive than Israel anticipated and continues to provide cover for Hamas's leaders and fighters. So that's a little bit of a validation if anyone's been watching Electronic Intifada. If you never heard of those guys, if you're not watching them, go subscribe and follow what the Palestinian perspective on this conflict is, please. They do great work, so they deserve everyone's support. But yeah, it is nice to see that what they've been saying has not just been propaganda. They've been telling us the truth, that Hamas has been very effectively fighting back. They strategically have essentially won this war at the expense of losing many of their non-combatant civilian population, which they couldn't really do anything to protect from this barbarous genocidal colonial entity there. Okay. Much respect for Hamas and the resistance, okay, from the river to the sea. All right. Palestine will be free. Additionally, the New York Times mentioned that current and former Pentagon officials have expressed concerns that Israel has yet to demonstrate its ability to fully secure captured areas in Gaza, especially after troop withdrawals. Despite the destruction inflicted by Israeli strikes and the high number of Palestinian fighters killed, Hamas still retains some military capabilities, the newspaper emphasized. Ongoing war destroying Israel in several areas. In a related context, former Israeli military ombudsman Major General Itzhak Brick warned that the ongoing war of attrition between Israel, Hamas, and Hezbollah not only fails to collapse the two groups, but also exhausts and destroys Israel in several areas, making it actually a very distinct possibility and not some pipe dream of so-called leftist extremists that Israel could very soon one day not exist, much like Nazi Germany no longer exists, because it should not. So, in his article in the Israeli newspaper Maariv, Brick suggested that the collapse of Israel is unfolding from within and as a result of external pressures. He pointed out that Netanyahu had already brought Israel to the brink of this collapse even before the outbreak of a potential regional war. Nevertheless, he warned that if a multi-front regional war erupts, it would accelerate the timeline for Israel's collapse. Touching on the situation of the Israeli military, the former Israeli official revealed that reservists who are repeatedly called up for duty are being severely drained because there are no replacements for them due to the reduction of 6 brigades over the past 20 years. Economically, Brick emphasized that the war of attrition that has been going on for almost a year has caused us, Israel, to lose the world. He indicated that Israel has become isolated, with even our best friends in European countries turning their backs on us. According to the Israeli Major General, Israel's isolation is reflected in economic boycotts, arms embargoes imposed by countries like the UK and France, and its exclusion from international ventures. You love to see it, something to actually warm your heart in these dark times. Moreover, he highlighted that Israel is facing a fiscal deficit exceeding 8%, with concerns within the Ministry of Finance that it could reach 9% in 2024, a figure far higher than the government's target of 6.6%. Brick further noted that Israel's credit rating is dropping weekly, which in turn makes loans to finance the war's enormous costs more expensive. Isn't imperialism our bread and butter? But what about that guns versus butter paradox, eh? The former official also stressed that the prolonged war of attrition is damaging many of the drivers behind Israel's economic growth, with high-tech professionals leaving the occupied lands. In the same vein, he noted that over 100,000 Israelis have been displaced from their settlements, while others are either unemployed or have seen their incomes drastically reduced, all of whom are now not contributing taxes. In his article, Brick also said that the International Court of Justice is inflicting irreversible damage on Israel, further deepening boycotts and hatred against it. Elsewhere, he acknowledged that Israel has no chance of survival if it continues to be pushed away from the community of what he called enlightened nations. So I don't know if we will want to call the G7 and the European white supremacist world enlightened, but it is ironic to see trouble in paradise here, okay? They can't seem to keep their shit together, can't seem to work with each other. They felt the need to push the world to this brink of disaster, and they can't handle themselves anymore. They can't keep each other in check. So as much as I kind of get some schadenfreude from seeing them kind of right at the end of the end of their wits here. I also worry very much about what happens when you push such an animal into the corner, right? So how you guys doing? Hey Rhonda, what's up? Israel is Rhodesia. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of good content going around right now. A lot of interesting things happening in the communist movements. I'll be hoping to be covering some of the changes going on. Kind of wish that things hadn't gone the way they did with RBN. I wish we would still be able to work with them in some way, but who knows? Maybe with time. Anyway, let's not get too distracted. Let's see what else we were going to go moving on here to. So speaking of settlements there, I find it ridiculous that they got 100,000 settlers being displaced from settlements, but if you go looking into further things, I'll be getting into. I'll just show you a quick sneak peek of this. Be getting to this article soon. A World Heritage Site under threat. Palestinian Christians fight to reclaim UNESCO land seized by Israeli settlers. So as much as they've got 100,000 settlers being pushed off of land, they're still claiming more land from the West Bank to for their settlers there, even though how long do you think you're really even going to be able to hold that land? You're going to force the Palestinians off, and then a month later, World War III. So, but I wanted to share this. One thing going around in the news is Putin is meeting with a boss. So I wanted to, for my next segment here, I wanted to talk about Russian diplomacy, not just with the boss, but like the Iranians and the Sahel states. So while the Americans are going around doing everything they can to ensure that World War III breaks out, it does seem, at least visibly, outwardly, that Russia is doing all that it can to prevent World War III. Let's take a look at this video here. I'm going to Russia Today. Let me just read. Russia today, unfortunately, must defend its interests and defend its people with weapons in hand. This is Putin meeting with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Must defend its interests and defend its people with weapons in hand. But what is happening in the Middle East, what is happening in Palestine, of course, does not go unnoticed on our part. We have a very long-standing deep tie with the Arab world in general, with Palestine in particular, and we value this very much. And of course, we are watching with great pain and anxiety the humanitarian catastrophe that has unfolded in Palestine. So I don't think there's actually any announcers. Russian president support for the creation of a Palestinian state. The two leaders discussed bilateral relations, the situation in Middle East, and war in Gaza. Calling Abbas a leader is a bit of a stretch. Yeah. Russia's position about the need for a peaceful settlement with Israel remained unchanged. Russia today, unfortunately, must defend. This was what he just said earlier. Must defend its interests and defend its people, with weapons in hand. But what is happening in the Middle East? What is happening in Palestine? Of course, go unnoticed on our part. Here we go again with them repeating words to stretch out the content. Very long-standing deep ties with the Arab world in general, with Palestine in particular, and we value this very much. And of course, we are watching with great pain and anxiety the humanitarian catastrophe that has unfolded in Palestine. I am very pleased to have the opportunity to meet with you today here in Moscow and talk about the entire complex of our relations, but also about the situation at the moment as well as for the near future. You know that we have always advocated a peaceful settlement. Our position here is unchanged. It was formulated a long time ago and does not have any opportunistic character. Take that for what you will. We believe that in order to ensure long-term, reliable, stable peace in the region, it is necessary to implement all decisions of the United Nations and, above all, to create a fully fledged Palestinian state. Russia has been a vocal critic of Israel's war on Palestinian enclave of Gaza since October. Moscow also hosted Hamas delegations for talks on hostages and Gaza situation. Russia is also involved in efforts to unite Palestinian rival factions Hamas and Fatah. Despite Israeli criticism, Putin has refused to withdraw support to Palestinian cause. Russia has also maintained direct communications with Hamas leadership in Gaza. Almost there. Hamas on many occasions praised Russian stand on Gaza war and overall Palestinian issue. And that's it. So that's the kind of thing. Maybe it's not like the best content I'd like to kind of deliver, to just be kind of reading off of those kinds of subtitles on a video like that. But I think it's important to ask ourselves. A lot of people will criticize Abbas as being like a puppet leader. So why would Putin kind of waste time talking to them? And I would kind of, I guess my take on it is that if you would rather have them not be in communication and having whatever influence they can through diplomacy, and leave the Palestinian Authority to only be in communication with Israel. I feel like it might be whatever leverage they can get. It would be beneficial for them to see if they can make some kind of burying of the hatchet with Fatah and Hamas. That would be beneficial to all Palestinians. I would think. I think that we should all want something like that if we are supporters of a full-fledged Palestinian state. It's not going to happen unless they can stop infighting amongst themselves, of course. So, and Russia's not just talking to Abbas. He's also talking to Hamas there. So, and I think it's important that to recognize that Russia has the support of Hamas in spite of having this communication with Abbas. So it seems like they have their blessing to be doing this. And especially the Palestinian Authority is much more in control, is one in control of the West Bank. And I wanted to share this next tab here because I think if a lot of people are going to kind of miss what's going on a little bit behind the scenes here with the Palestinian Authority and Israel as to why those talks need to kind of take place at this moment. So this article is from NPR from June 27th, 2024. West Bank economy under threat as Israel sidelines the Palestinian Authority. I didn't want to read too much of this. I'll just get to it. Israel's far-right finance minister's economic policies have the potential to collapse the Palestinian Authority and cause fiscal chaos in the West Bank. Israel's finance minister has announced that he will lift financial sanctions against the Palestinian Authority, which governs part of the occupied West Bank. In exchange, the Israeli cabinet will legalize 5 unauthorized settlements in the West Bank. There has been international concern of a West Bank economic collapse, which would have wider security implications in Israel. So, in a video posted earlier Friday morning, Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich says he has fulfilled a promise. 5 illegal Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank will now be recognized by the state. What he doesn't mention in that video is that this is his reward for retracting some harsh economic punishments he placed on the Palestinian Authority after the war in Gaza began. In May, he withheld customs tax revenue that Israel collects and transfers to the Palestinian Authority. With this deal, he will release the funds. He'd also announced that he'd cut off Palestinian banks from their Israeli counterparts by July 1st. He also canceled that. So I'm going to pivot over to this other article that I shared here now, because that's basically all the relevant details I wanted from NPR there. But yeah, the whole thing about, a boss is being a bitch boy to Israel, whatever, he's basically completely in a catch-22, whatever. He's doing whatever he has to for his people. He's being completely blackmailed there. And I guess if you can make the argument, if the Palestinian Authority wasn't acting the way that they were, there would be people in the West Bank that would starve. There would be more suffering that they are preventing. That doesn't mean that this situation can continue. It's completely unsustainable. It's just when someone is under coercion, it is important to recognize that officially out loud and not act like they are acting out of free will. And the Palestinian Authority has had their free will taken from them, and they are just doing what they can to save their children. So let's try and keep that kind of thing in mind. So it's a situation that sucks, We all don't want to see it, but it is what it is, whatever that is. So, a World Heritage Site under threat, Palestinian Christians fight to reclaim UNESCO land seized by Israeli settlers. So, I wanted to read this. It's not that long. This just came out just today. So, written by Jessica Buxbaum. The UNESCO recognized Al Makrour area is under threat of Israeli settler expansion as Palestinians return to their land to demonstrate and reclaim their homes. I apologize to the chat here if I'm neglecting you guys, but it doesn't look too much like you guys have tons to say here anyway. So thanks, Steve, for subscribing to my channel. Good time to say like, share, and subscribe. Anyone else who's out there listening or who will catch this later. Appreciate you all. Have a good day. On July 31st, Israeli settlers escorted by soldiers with the Israeli Civil Administration, the military body governing the occupied West Bank, raided the Qassia family's land in Al Makrour, a lush valley near Bethlehem, and forcibly evicted the Palestinian Christians. Since then, the family, along with Palestinian, Israeli, and international activists, have continuously returned to their land to demonstrate against the eviction and reclaim their home. The settlers are trying now to use the war, and with all eyes on Gaza and the demonstrations happening in Israel, Alice Qassia, 30, told the New Era. So they're taking advantage of the situation to steal more lands, she adds. As much as it's important to be following things like American electoral politics, don't forget about how much is happening that you're not paying attention to because all of that big, huge distraction. So On the day of the eviction, the Israeli army declared an area adjacent to the Qassia land a closed military zone. While their land wasn't included in the order, the army used it to bar the family from their land. The Israeli military did not respond to the new Arabs' inquiries. Shocking. So, as much as there's a lot of outrage over what the Israeli legal system is doing with the battle over the right to rape uh, Palestinian prisoners of war, um, this is another example of their complete inability to do anything legally speaking that makes any kind of sense. So I just think it's important to kind of have a well-rounded understanding of their insanity and their, you know, their racism, you know, their ethnic cleansing. So um, UNESCO land under threat. Al-Makrur was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2014. It's because of the continuous inhabitation of humans for thousands of years, Mazin Kumsia, a Bethlehem University professor and director of the university's Palestine Institute for Biodiversity and Sustainability, told the New Arab when explaining the UNESCO label. Palestinians have long farmed Al-Makrur's ancient sloped terraces, yet settlements are disrupting the area's biodiversity, according to a 2023 report by Bethlehem University. This is UNESCO recognized as under threat because of the expansion of settlements, Kumsia said. So this is one of those things that I'm just going to pause to comment here, that the Israelis make the claim that they have this right to return because of some super important, ancient, thousand-year-old history and heritage that deserves the right to be preserved and respected, and yet they cannot respect the internationally recognized world heritage sites that are culturally important and historically important for all of us, for the progress of science itself and these kinds of things. So I really hope those people who are supporting Israel can recognize that the more that they continue to support Israel, the more that they have to abandon every principled anything that they've ever held, every belief that they've ever held in life is going to go down the fucking toilet because they feel the need to support a bunch of maniacs. So wake up, right? Ongoing violence. State and settler violence has plagued the Qassia family since 2005. Their family-owned restaurant was demolished in 2012, 2013, and 2015 because they built the structure without a permit. Now, the average Karen out there will, well, they didn't have a permit, and they went and built it without the permits. What do you expect? They're going to knock it down. I mean, you got to have a permit. You want to build a building. Except they can't fucking get the permit because these fucking assholes won't let them have it, even though they have done everything they should have to do to be able to qualify for these things in a proper way. Because of their racist, insanity, they just refuse to do the right thing. Okay, so I've encountered some of this in my own situation here in Canada, where none of the people in a position of authority who are supposed to do things in the proper fashion are actually doing them and following their own fucking rules. So what the hell are you supposed to do when the people who are supposed to actively engage in the services that have to do with providing you your rights? What do you do when they refuse to provide you those rights? You have to fight for them, or give up and acquiesce to this insanity. It's not really an option. Okay. So the Qassia land is located in Israeli military-controlled Area C of the West Bank, where the Israeli army rarely grants Palestinians building permits. For the Qassias, Israel repeatedly rejected the family's permit applications, resulting in the army issuing a demolition order against their construction. Ramzi Qassia, the father, is a resident of the West Bank, while his wife and children, including Alice, are Israeli citizens. Another little fun fact that people like to forget is that there are a little bit of these Romeo and Juliet situations going on, where some of these Israeli citizens are actually decent human beings. It's just easy to forget because there is so many of them that are just not decent people. I'm sorry. They have been brainwashed, and they are doing all the things that make it so that you cannot call them good people because they refuse to be good people. So in 2019, Israeli forces demolished their restaurant and home under the claim the Jewish National Fund, a charity, non-government operation purchasing land for Jewish settlement, owns the area there. So that's one of these other things, right? In Canada, they just had um, the tax exempt status of some of these charities revoked because they were credibly found to be, funding a genocide through charity work. Yeah. So please be careful about where you donate your money. Do your own research, right? So despite the demolitions, the family remained on their land, growing lemons, figs, grapes, apricots, and olives, and sleeping tents. I don't know if I were in their position. I don't think I would have had the strength to do what they do. These people are amazing. So initially, the Casillas faced demolition threats from the Israeli military. But in 2017, the JNF joined the legal battle at Israel's Supreme Court through its subsidiary, Himanuta, and alleged the organization bought the land in 1969. Just invent kind of claims out of whole cloth and expect the world to believe them because, you're anti-Semitic if you don't. So the Casillas deny this, saying they have lived on the land for generations and have never sold their property. I think they would know if they sold their property, but they want to gaslight you to the extreme. Okay. In May 2023, the Jerusalem District Court affirmed the Casilla family owns land by accepting their land registration from the civil administration as proof of ownership. You would think that would seem like a little bit of a ray of hope, a moment of reason from the Israeli courts. The ruling, however, didn't stop settlers from seizing the family's land last month. Oh, so the ruling made no difference whatsoever. So the district court is essentially useless, just like the courts in Canada. The ruling, however, didn't stop settlers from seizing the family's land last month. Lior Tal, who erected the nearby Neve Ori settlement outpost, is reportedly behind the land theft, along with Yaron Rosenthal, council leader of Gush Etzion, a block of settlements south of Jerusalem and Bethlehem. So this is the difficult thing. It's a land theft for the people on the ground who are refusing to give up the land. And yet you've got some Palestinian Authority type figures being coerced into making deals that apparently legalize these types of settlements. So we now have a legal quandary. Who gets to make that kind of an agreement if you don't have the consent of the people on the ground? I don't think that the Palestinian Authority actually has the right to make that. Legally speaking, they don't have the right to make that kind of an agreement, but I'm no lawyer. I don't think I ever would have the capacity to be one, and I wouldn't want to be one. Lawyers, where are you, right? Yeah. Alice Casilla told the New Arab that Himanuta claims Tal is renting the land from them. Himanuta and the Gush Etzion Council also did not respond to the New Arab's queries before publication. A sequence of settlements. On June 27, 2024, Israel's Security Cabinet legalized 5 settlement outposts in the West Bank, including Neve Ori. Unlike traditional Israeli settlements, which are illegal under international law, but legal under Israeli law, outposts are considered illegal by both the international community and the Israeli state. Interesting little fun fact. Despite not being officially authorized, some outposts receive state support in construction, infrastructure, and defense. So even when the Israeli state recognizes that their actions are illegal, they still participate in their own illegal activity. Nothing to see here. Okay, officially. Okay, they officially participate in something that is not officially authorized, and they just kind of totally leave you with that cognitive dissonance. Right? You figure it out, right? Make sense of what doesn't make sense. So the legalization of outposts to secure full funding and prevent demolition is one of the top priorities for the current Israeli government. But you can't legalize what's I'm not even, whatever. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, a settler himself, is pushing to expedite the approval of outposts across the West Bank through the newly created Settlement Administration. In April, he instructed other ministries to provide budgets and services to 68 outposts. Yet legalizing outposts is about more than just receiving full government benefits. The Makrour area is particularly strategically important for a future Palestinian state. Peace Now, an Israeli activist group which monitors settlement activity, wrote in a press release. Al-Makrour is at the center of 5 Palestinian villages where approximately 25,000 Palestinians reside. Legalizing Neve Ori means severing these villages from Bethlehem and further fragmenting the land reserved for a Palestinian state. So they are trying to legalize the ethnic cleansing. You cannot legalize ethnic cleansing. You cannot legalize the most heinous crimes against humanity. There is no avenue for that. There never will be. Whatever you can make up a false law, you can tell a lie and call it true. It doesn't change the objective truth. Okay, so like Martin Luther King, an unjust law is no law at all. I think it's really important for us to set that one in stone. Okay, to have no ambiguity about that anymore. The intention of the new settlement is to create a sequence of settlements that will disconnect the Palestinian villages from Bethlehem while connecting the Gush Etzion settlements to Jerusalem, Peace Now wrote. I'm just going to take a moment to check in on you guys. Hey, Sean, what's up? Thanks for coming. Yeah, sorry if I haven't been sharing any of your comments here. Just doing a solo show. Hey, Mastermind Hour. What's up? When the Zionists were active in the 19th century, Jacqueline says, didn't they have several potential sites for the new Israel, including sites in the continent of Africa? Yeah, that's a lesser known fact. I learned a while ago that that's very that's good to keep in mind, that the idea of Israel never actually had to be in the Middle East, even for the Zionists back in the day. They were fully open to putting it in, I think in Uganda was one of the, was where they were considering it in Africa. And I thought maybe there was even a potential site that they were thinking about in Canada, and I forget the other locations. But they had a few different places they were considering, demonstrating that their idea, like the Holy Land, was not really like holy land so much. Like there were. I don't really want to get too much into that because it's a bit like off topic from what I was going to talk about. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Jacqueline. Israel could have been anywhere, and it should have been nowhere. So. So, the Mastermind says, sorry, I'm out of pocket and couldn't mod. No, that's okay. I maybe could have appreciated a bit of assistance today, but I'm also maybe a little awkward to do things alone. I'm not got the most charisma or something, but it's good practice to try and do things on your own a little bit. I know you had 2 shows already this week, so whatever else you got going on with your home life, you take it easy. Don't work too hard. I got it. Even cartoon villains wouldn't be this evil. Yeah. Well, they're trying to make they were trying to make the Israeli cartoon villain into a cartoon hero for the Marvel universe there, and then they actually had so much pushback that they had to cancel that. So that's one of those things you love to see, that the people have spoken. As corrupted as their Marvel universe is, and all these people with their TV shows, they still, there's a bridge too far for them. I appreciate that. So, Jacqueline says, I got more guts than you do, or you've got more guts than I have, Michael, but I just sound too nervous. It wouldn't be good. Oh, it's okay. Maybe one day if you ever feel like you can overcome those nerves. I know you tried to hop on the civilian discourse that one day, but then had a little difficulty, kind of bailed a bit. That's okay. You do you, right? Whatever makes you feel comfortable. If you'd rather just chat in the chat, I appreciate you. You're already braver than many others who will watch the show and not feel comfortable enough to exercise their free speech. You know, so shout out to anyone watching who's not commented yet. Feel free to join us in the chat. We don't bite most of the time. So anyway, let me just get back to this article. I had some other topics. Well, I've been going for an hour now. I don't know how much whatever else is going on tonight, how long you guys are willing to sit here for, but I had plenty of things to talk about. Considering I'm just by myself, I figured I'd just you know load up the docket with tabs and just fire away, right? So here we go. Let's wrap this one up. So it's getting a little hot in here. Just give me a moment. I gotta turn up my AC. I hope that's not too loud. Okay, so Israeli newspaper Israel Hayom revealed maps and classified documents they obtained show Smotrich is initiating a plan in the settlement administration to obstruct Palestinian statehood. 5 settlements approved for construction by the Security Cabinet are the first step in a plan intended to prevent the Palestinians from having territorial continuity in Judea and Samaria, Israel's name for the West Bank. Settlers may have taken over the family's land, but Alice Cassia says the displacement is ultimately in the state's hands. While the JNF is a charity, it is highly influential in Israeli land policy and maintains quasi-governmental responsibilities. We are facing the JNF, which means you are facing the Zionist state, Alice Cassia said. They're closing everything around us, physically and even with money, just not to let us breathe. Yet shouting into a megaphone next to a line of Israeli soldiers blocking her home, Alice Cassia remains resilient. So I appreciate these stories of resilience, they put me to shame a little bit, right? So if these people can withstand this, whatever, maybe some of us mopey assholes in the West can do better with our lives, right? Believe in yourself. So I just find it interesting, the typical the fascist definition from Mussolini of fascism is the merger of corporate power and of the corporation and the state kind of thing, and yet what gets left out in that is the NGOs there. So it looks like the modern evolution of fascism includes the merger of corporate power and charity power and the state, in this sick, twisted trifecta of evil. So, anyway, what else was I going to share here? I was going to just talk about the other diplomacy that Russia's been up to here. So they seem to kind of have everything on, they're got a competent handle on everything, right? They're communicating with the Palestinians and the Iranians here, while the West destroys, the rest of the world's picking up the pieces and being the adults in the room. So this was from August 5th here. A senior ally of President Vladimir Putin arrived in Tehran on Monday for talks with Iranian leaders, including the president and top security officials, as the Islamic Republic weighs its response to the killing of a Hamas leader. Russia has condemned the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, leader of the Palestinian group Hamas, in Iran last week, and called on all parties to refrain from steps that could tip the Middle East into a wider regional war. Sergei Shoigu, the secretary of Russia's Security Council, was shown by Russia's Zvezda television station meeting Rear Admiral Ali Akbar Ahmadian, a senior Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander who serves as secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. Shoigu, who was Russia's defense minister before being moved to the Security Council in May, will also meet President Masoud Pezeshkian, Zvezda said. Wow. I really picked the right article to read today. In Tehran, the Secretary of the Russian Security Council is scheduled to meet with the President, Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, and the head of the General Staff, according to Zvezda TV. Though Putin has yet to comment in public on the recent escalation of tensions in the Middle East, I'm not sure if this was 10 days ago. He probably has made a comment by now. Senior Russian officials have said that those behind the killing of Haniya were seeking to scuttle any hope of peace in the Middle East and to draw the United States into military action. So it's kind of ironic to see. I'm sure the Americans, CIA, were well involved in um, like approving, or at least not um, preventing the Israelis from carrying out that attack, and then they go around acting like they're going to somehow um, pull off a peace plan. The Biden administration, it's completely ridiculous, right? Iran has blamed Israel and said it will punish it. Israeli officials have not claimed responsibility. Iran backs Hamas, which is at war with Israel and Gaza, and also the Lebanese group Hezbollah, whose senior military commander Fuad Shukr was killed in an Israeli strike on Beirut last week. Now I'm kind of reading information we already all know. My bad. Russia has cultivated closer ties with Iran. So Reuters reported in February that Iran had provided Russia with a large number of powerful surface-to-surface ballistic missiles. The United States said in June that Russia appeared to be deepening its defense cooperation with Iran and had received hundreds of one-way attack drones that it was using to strike Ukraine, something Moscow denies. Russia said last Friday that it joined Iran in condemning the assassination of the Hamas leader and pointing out the extremely dangerous consequences of such actions. So I didn't really need to read that article. I just kind of wanted to highlight how, uh, you know, Russia is trying to be that adult in the room. It's kind of impossible, though. What do you do when push comes to shove? So, what I wanted to get to next was Moscow hosts security talks with the Sahel states. So, there's so much going on. I'm trying to figure out, kind of put the pieces together a little bit, because it does seem like things are about to really blow up, and I'm trying to figure out like what side is everyone going to be on, right? They're all kind of they're picking their sides now at the moment. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Chad and Kenya and Nigeria. So there's kind of like this axis in Africa that's lining up with the U.S. and so the other axis is definitely in line with Moscow, and so this is where, in the title, I'm talking about Cold War II. Things very much are. The world is being divided again. You know, the push for a multipolar world is very much creating a multipolarity now, and it's kind of interesting to watch it unfold. So, if we don't actually try and watch it and understand it as it's happening, it's a lot harder after the fact to try and figure it out. So here we go. Russia's defense ministry says it has discussed areas of cooperation with Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, and the Central African Republic. Good to keep seeing this list grow. I'd like to keep seeing more nations added to this list here. So, Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov has held talks with his counterparts from Burkina Faso and Niger on potential areas of security cooperation with the Western African nations. The meetings were hosted on the sidelines of the 10th Army 2024 International Military Technical Forum taking place near Moscow. Russian Defense Ministry reported on Wednesday. The Russian Defense Chief Burkina Faso's Kasum Koulibaly and Niger's Hamadou Djibo Bartier also discussed issues related to strengthening security in Central Africa, according to the ministry. I know it seems a little kind of boring to report about people talking behind closed doors, and it's kind of like a bit of a nothing burger, right? But this is significant. These talks that are happening, they are kind of groundbreaking. It is wonderful to see an anti-imperialist alliance really not just form like fledglingly, but like actually kind of bloom into and mature into something real and significant. I really want to see where it's going, as much as it's kind of terrifying to watch. So, the engagements with the Burkinabe and Nigerian officials followed a meeting between Belousov and the Malian and Central African Republic defense ministers. Talks involving Bamako and Bangui on Tuesday also centered on the expansion of bilateral defense cooperation, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry. There was an exchange of views on the most pressing issues of the international situation and regional security, it added. Representatives from Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, and the Central African Republic are among some 110 foreign military delegations that the Russian Defense Ministry said have been invited to attend the three-day Army 2024 forum. Addressing the opening session on Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the event has proven to be a platform that fosters constructive cooperation between Moscow and other governments. He added that more than 120 foreign companies have registered to participate in the forum. The agenda of the event, according to Putin, is to offer grand-scale presentations of the most advanced and largely unique achievements of Russia's defense manufacturers, which include over 240 export versions of weapons and other kinds of military and specialized hardware. So I'm a little bit not super pleased to see just so much militarism. Like, the more guns and bombs there are in the world, the more it seems very likely for them to be used. That doesn't make me feel good, but I really hope that all of this military deterrence, this building up a military power that supposedly uh, its purpose is for deterrence, I hope that it is actually effective in doing so. So, excuse me. Michael, could you post links in the chat or in the description? Yeah, sorry. You want me to post the link for this article right here? And let me know which of some of the other articles I'd already read. This is articles from RT here. And I had read this, the first article, or the second one I read was from Al Mayadeen. I think that's a Lebanese website. I may be getting that mixed up. Very first article was from India TV News. I don't know how much that one really needs to be shared. And then I'll share, I guess, with the New Arab article, newarab.com article about the UNESCO heritage site. Is that good, Jacqueline? I hope that those articles are the ones you're looking for. I still got other ones I'll try and share next. I should start putting them in the description. I do get a bit unsure as to what to put in there, but maybe every show I'll just put all the links that I've got in the description, like other people, like T-Lab have painstakingly made the efforts to be more professional, and that's what I was saying I was going to try and do next week. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. So and then another thing you said, Jacqueline, WHO declares new public health emergency. I don't like the sound of that. Yeah, there's not what I'm reporting on today. I could have, but I chose to take it in this direction. The WHO is announcing monkeypox, worldwide threat, conveniently right in the moment that they need to distract the hell out of people. So please, YouTube gonna call me misinformation or whatever, pseudoscientist, conspiracy whack job or whatever, but I'm gonna just have to say my opinion here. Don't be letting them tell you some propaganda about some huge, massive scaremongering tactic, right when we can see that they're about to lose all of their hegemony there. I would say there could very well be a correlation there. So I'm not a scientist or a doctor, though. Keep that in mind as well. So the other thing that they're trying to do is keep people worried about COVID. There also has been summer resurgence of COVID, summertime surgence of so-called winter respiratory virus. That just doesn't make any sense. you want to argue that it's not made in a lab kind of thing. Well, what the hell is your respiratory condition affecting people so much in the summer for, allegedly? So I call bullshit, but whatever. Yeah. No, it's okay. Appreciate that. Jacqueline saying just get distracted by the side headlines. Yeah, that's what they're there for. That's what they're trying to do. It'd be like people. I love how we've got all this huge advent of the ADHD and ADD and stuff, and yet nobody wants to talk about how much advertisements and stuff are distracting the hell out of people, kind of creating a condition that probably wouldn't be there if you would stop manipulating people so much with all this stuff. So yeah, I hope. Oh, sorry, Sean. He says he thinks he's got it. Woke up with a frog in his throat. Well, take care of yourself. Drink some orange juice. Take some whatever medicine you feel comfortable with. I don't think it helps to be taking things like Advil and Tylenol and all this. That just does more damage to your liver. But do your own research. Take your own advice. Don't be listening to random people on the internet if you don't feel comfortable. So let me get back to wherever I was here. I think I was on this line. So, no, here, 240 expert versions. Yeah, I'll just start up here. Addressing the opening session on Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the event has proven to be a platform that fosters constructive cooperation between Moscow and other governments. He added that more than 120 foreign companies have registered to participate in the forum. It's kind of like the international version of going to the gym and getting buff, whatever, with your buds and learning how to, learn some self-defense, maybe, just with guns and bombs. Anyway, the agenda of the event, according to Putin, is to offer grand-scale presentations of the most advanced and largely unique achievements of Russia's defense manufacturers, which include over 240 expert versions of weapons and other kinds of military and specialized hardware. I feel like I already read that. We treasure our partnerships and are committed to developing them by working together with others in order to ensure equal and indivisible security and build a new, fairer, multipolar world order. In an interview with Sputnik on Wednesday, Burkinabe Defense Minister Koulibaly lauded the organizers for making this year's event really enriching. I really feel happy for the global South and the East that they have so much hope and potential for the future. There's a little bit of envy, if I'm honest. I kind of wish things were different, but in another way, I kind of appreciate that things are happening the way they are, and I wouldn't really change necessarily what is taking place, right? So it's just one of those things. There was a major innovation, which was a kind of seminar for the participants, because not only was there the equipment, but also there were the presentations that were made on the feedback in all areas. He was quoted as saying, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali have in recent months sought increased security cooperation with Russia to combat a decade-old jihadist insurgency in the Sahel. All three landlocked West African states have expelled French troops who had been involved in a counterterrorism mission in the region, citing their failure to quell the militants that I fully suspect that they were actually funding and arming instead of counter-terrorizing, or whatever you want to call it. So, Russia has committed to helping the troubled Sahel states and the Central African Republic, which has also endured decades of militant violence and political insecurity, tackle the long-standing threats. So, appreciate the solidarity, even if Russia is not communist. They still seem to know how to be there for other people. So, yeah. So, moving on to another RT article, I wanted to pivot a bit to. So I've been talking about Russian diplomacy and stuff, but kind of the elephant in the room when we're talking about Russia at the moment is the Kursk offensive. So just give me a moment to fiddle with my banner over here. I don't know. I had this one saved from a while ago. I'll just use this for now. Because there really does seem to be an imperial dream here of Zelensky and invading Kursk. I'll actually briefly share. This tab here. I wanted to talk about next after the RT article I'm about to read, because there is this whole history doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme, and it seems like maybe they're calling this invasion like I don't know if you guys followed the Duran, the two Alexes. We were saying that this invasion is basically Zelensky's brainchild. It's his baby. So, and what it seems to me like he's pulling a page out of history. He's taking a play out of Hitler's playbook. If you ask me, it looks like he's literally just trying to recreate, like trying to succeed where Hitler failed, trying to do the exact same invasion in the exact same location. And he's probably going to get what seems to be actually taking place as we speak is Russia is repelling this invasion into the Kursk region is doomed to fail. It's a waste. It's an all-out last-ditch effort gamble, and I actually think it's probably the silver lining is it's probably a good thing. It looks like the Ukrainians have opted for the fast-acting poison over the slow one, because if they didn't do this gamble, which is going to increase the I think the ending of the war would happen sooner because of this gamble of Zelensky's failed gamble, likely. Because if they didn't do that, those forces would have been free to slow down the advancement of the Donbass front. I'm no military expert either. Maybe I should become some kind of an expert in something so that I can be, feel special. Anyway, let me stop just rambling here and get to this article. So, Russia declares federal emergency in another region. A high-level commission has ordered the measure in Belgorod following Ukraine's cross-border incursion. A federal emergency has been declared in Russia's Belgorod region amid a cross-border incursion by Ukrainian forces, the Emergencies Ministry in Moscow has announced. Last week, Kiev launched its largest attack on Russian territory since the outbreak of the conflict in February 2022. The incursion focused on Kursk region, where Ukrainian troops still hold a number of settlements. However, the neighboring Belgorod and Bryansk regions have also been affected. A federal emergency was declared in Kursk region on Friday, followed by the announcement of a counter-terrorist operation in Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk regions. The decision to declare a federal emergency in Belgorod region was made during a government meeting in Moscow on Thursday, in which Emergencies Minister Alexandra Kurinkov and Belgorod region Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov both participated. The situation in Belgorod region remains difficult and tense, Kurinkov said. As a result of terrorist attacks by the Ukrainian armed units, residential buildings and infrastructure facilities have been damaged. There are killed and wounded among the civilians, he stressed. So, as much as those of us who've been supportive of Russia kind of want to be blind and just sort of say that they're incapable of making any mistakes, it doesn't seem like they would willingly throw away their civilians. So it does seem like they've been a bit caught by surprise. But I also wonder how much they could have potentially seen this coming a little bit and decided that it was worth the risk. That the Russians made their own gamble to not abandon their strategy they had in place as far as their actions in the Donbass. And I think that it looks like they made the right call. Unfortunately, some people have been apparently potentially sacrificed, you might say. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. They didn't really have a choice. They had to make a tough call here. And I'm sure the NATO propagandists, the NAFO trolls and the mainstream media, CNN and Fox and all those assholes are like really having a field day, making up a whole bunch of bullshit about how Russia's panicking and Russia's falling apart, and this little invasion of the Kursk region demonstrates how incompetent they are and stuff. I would caution you to disregard that kind of nonsense. I feel like the Russians have demonstrated themselves to be prosecuting this war with competency and efficiency, and we shall see what comes of this. It looks like they've already kind of managed to sort of take the wind out of the sails of this advance, but don't want to be making predictions, right? We have to see what happens each day. The local authorities are providing comprehensive assistance to the population, the article continues, but the region lacks the capacity to deal with the aftermath of the incursion on its own, the minister said, explaining the decision to announce a federal level response. The measure means that people whose relatives have been killed, have been wounded themselves, or have had their property damaged as a result of the Ukrainian attack can apply for compensation from the Russian state. It also allows the authorities to restrict access to the emergency area, carry out mandatory evacuations, and commandeer personal vehicles for government needs, among other actions. Seems like they are responding as ably as they can. I wish that our government would kind of, care about us as much as it seems. Like, this is maybe a difficult kind of claim to make. I don't really know what it's like to be a Russian, experiencing what it's like to have the Russian government, but they really do seem to be taking care of their people a lot more. So I feel abandoned by my government. I don't know about you guys. Moscow's defense ministry said on Thursday that Ukraine had lost up to 340 troops and 19 pieces of equipment, including 5 U.S.-made Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, during clashes in Russian border regions over the past 24 hours. Overall, Kiev lost some 2,640 servicemen and several hundred units of military hardware since the start of the incursion, including 37 tanks and 32 APCs, the ministry added. The operation to destroy the Ukrainian armed units continues, it said. I'm curious to know how many Russian servicemen were lost in this incursion. We're never really going to know. I'm not sure how to fact check this kind of number. Take it for what you will, grain of salt, all that fun stuff. I'll put this one in this link into the chat as well. Take a moment for some water. So, as far as imperial dreams here, why did the Germans suffer a defeat at Kursk in 1943? I just kind of Googled Kursk a little bit today, and this kind of came up, and I was like, oh, maybe I will talk about this, because I just find it eerily, a little bit eerie, just like creepy, that this sort of thing like is literally taking place, like this repetition of military history. So the Battle of Kursk took place in July 1943, and one of the largest and most important battles fought on the Eastern Front during World War II. And it seems like it's one of the largest and most important battles fought on the Eastern Front during World War III. Potentially the first battle fought on the front in World War III. Well, I don't know. Let's not go there, right? Kursk was the largest tank battle in history, and it was the last attempt by the German army to slow down the Soviet military. Kursk was the last throw of the dice for Germany on the Eastern Front. This is what I'm saying, eerily similar, because this is looking like exactly the same thing. It's for the Ukrainians, the last throw of the dice for the Ukrainian regime on the Eastern Front. The failure of the German offensive at Kursk dealt a severe blow to the army. The failure of the Ukrainian offensive at Kursk is going to deal a severe blow to this army that's already had as many severe blows as it can take. So after the battle, Germany adopted a defensive posture on the Eastern Front. Why did they fail to achieve their objectives? And so I think it's interesting, as far as to answer that question, the reason why the Germany failed to achieve their objectives is likely to be similar to why Ukraine will fail their objectives, but maybe not quite the same, as far as the rhyming of history and not the identical repetition. So I don't want to read all of this. This is I'll share this link in the description as well for you. If this is more for the history buffs, not everybody enjoys such deep dives into history, but I just thought with this this offensive occurring, this is the day to talk about this particular. I didn't actually know about this Kursk offensive. I get a little tired of World War II history. You know, there's so much to learn about it and so much material to sift through, and it's learning about all this, atrocious like human things that human beings can do to one another. At some point, I enjoy learning about this kind of stuff, but I'm only a human being after all myself, and I just need to take a break from it. So. Germany had invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941. At first, they had driven the Red Army back to the gates of Moscow. However, winter and a Soviet counterattack prevented them from capturing Moscow. The following year, the Germans launched an offensive in the south of Russia aimed at the oil fields in the Caucasus. Hitler diverted forces to take Stalingrad. The Battle of Stalingrad reversed the tide of the war for Germany and resulted in a catastrophic mistake. The entire German Sixth Army was annihilated at Stalingrad. The Germans managed to stabilize the situation after Stalingrad and had even managed to inflict a heavy defeat on the Soviets at Kharkov. By the spring of 1943, the Germans felt confident enough to plan for another offensive in the east, even though they were still losing ground to the Soviets. Germany wanted to prove to the Soviets and the Western Allies that they were not fatally weakened after Stalingrad. So for me, for the repetition of history here, Ukraine wants to prove to the Russians and their Eastern allies that Ukraine was not fatally weakened after Avdiivka. Okay, and what's that the earlier one? Mariupol. Okay, so there are some parallels here. I thought maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments. By the summer of 1943, the Russians had advanced west and retaken territory in Ukraine. Hitler was determined to reverse the recent Soviet gains and to push them back to the east. On the eastern front, there was a bulge in the front line between Orel and Kharkov. Right at the heart of this bulge was Kursk. This bulge meant that the Soviets could outflank the Germans, which could lead to the collapse of their front lines. The German high command was very concerned about the bulge and believed that it needed to be removed. The German generals decided to destroy the bulge in their lines. They intended to cut off the Soviet troops occupying the bulge and inflict a devastating defeat on the Soviet Union. Hitler backed the plan in April 1943 and expected the victory at Kursk would be a beacon for the whole world, which I feel when we recognize this Kursk invasion as Zelensky's brainchild, I think he is trying to go for the same. He's basically just trying to do what his hero maybe is trying to do what his hero could not there. And he's to get his funding from the West. If they could pull off that invasion, it would be like a beacon for the whole Western alliance to give him more money. So what was I going to say? The bulge in the front line. I found this interesting. I wanted to share with you this. This is the Military Summary channel. This guy is one of the mappers. There's several mapper channels if you're interested in trying to follow the daily changes on the ground. You kind of have to follow multiple mappers to get any kind of sense of what's going on. I find this channel to be quite reliable, but you shouldn't rely too much on a single source. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to show this was right here. Looks to me like kind of that bulge that was like, I'm not exactly sure where Orel is in Kharkov here, but I think this the push. This is the Kursk offensive here, and so they're trying to eliminate this bulge here. I think it's the exact same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if the Russian generals had planned their strategy to kind of incorporate this very same like line of defense in the same area in order to force the Ukrainians to tactically confront the same weaknesses that they had to confront in the 1940s. I don't know, really not a military strategist, not able to understand what would be right or wrong about this. I just found that this bulge is I think that it's like a Achilles heel for Ukraine. There's certain regions in the world that just have strengths and weaknesses to them, and it makes it so that any kind of war sort of will take this certain shape in that region because of the geography. So back to this article. The Germans managed to stabilize the situation after Stalingrad, and had even managed to inflict a heavy defeat on the Soviets at Kharkov. Where was I? Oh yeah, I was going down here. A successful German offensive would have greatly improved Germany's strategic position on the Eastern Front. The Germans believed that the Soviet leadership had become increasingly disenchanted with their Western allies. So this is a similar thing. The Ukrainians believe that the Russian, they're wanting to have them that's one of the differences right there. So the Russians are very much, there is no disenchantment between Russia and their allies. We're seeing with Russia's diplomacy, like, they got each other's back. They're not worried about if they're going to be abandoned by their allies. Rather, the shoe's on the other foot this time. Ukrainians are worried about their own Western NATO allies becoming increasingly disenchanted with the Ukrainians' ability to win the war. So there's that. Despite constant demands, the British and the Americans had failed to open a second front in Western Europe, which we know they eventually did. If the German forces inflicted a devastating defeat on Stalin's armies, the Soviets would be more likely to enter into peace negotiations with the Germans and end their alliance with Britain and the United States. And what I've been hearing, one of the reasons behind this invasion, the stated claim reasons for this, was to try to force Russia into peace negotiations. So there's another parallel there as far as history. So let me just keep reading here. I'll catch up with you guys in the chat in a moment, because I'm only going to read, I think, to the end of this paragraph here. So this could have allowed the Germans to keep many of their gains in the East and concentrate on their war with the Western allies. So this would be, in our modern context, if they could force the Russians to a peace agreement that they don't want, it would allow NATO to keep many of their gains in Ukraine, and then concentrate on their war with China that they want to open up. So it's in China's interest and Russia's interest to not be forced into signing peace negotiations. I don't think they're actually going to. This pressure, they don't have enough pressure to mount to actually effectively force the Russians into a peace negotiation, because Russia's not. They're going to wait them out, and they're going to bring Ukraine to peace negotiations after the Donbass front. We'll see. They're going to potentially push all the way. If you watch that military summary channel, you'll see that what's a good way to solve this problem for the Russians might be for the I'm trying to remember the name. Starts with a P. So there's a certain place where they're about to push through in the Donbass region, and if they just keep pushing, then they can kind of come in behind the Ukrainians in the Kursk region. They could just, because once they push through these the lines of defense that Ukraine's managed to mount, there's kind of nothing stopping them, especially since all of the whatever reserves that could be sent to stop their advance have been sent to the Kursk region. So they could encircle them potentially, which is a disaster. That's what you're always trying to do in the military, in war like this. Is you're always trying to encircle the enemy, cut them off, and then force them to surrender, so you don't have to waste your own troops. So back to this little article. Concentrate on their war with the Western allies. Despite the recent setbacks on the Eastern Front and in North Africa, Germany remained confident that they could turn the tide of war back in their favor. The Germans believed that their army was better armed in 1943 than at any other time. Hitler had appointed Albert Speer as head of the armaments industry and had dramatically increased production. So the West seems to believe that Ukraine's being armed with some of the best arms that man can make, right? We've got all, if you watch, what's his name? Brian Berletic. He's got great content on all of this. He's always been saying that the West keeps rolling out wonder weapon after wonder weapon, and all these super weapons have not really made any actual change. All these HIMARS and Abrams tanks and everything, they're all really revealing the American military to be that paper tiger that people have been accusing it to be. And unless you're paying attention, you're not actually recognizing that those people who've been saying that appear to be correct. Okay, that's an important thing to recognize, that America actually is not that massive, difficult, impossible enemy to defeat, but a giant paper tiger. So Germany, despite constant air attacks and limited natural resources, increased their number of munitions and weapons greatly. In 1943, the German armaments sector produced almost 12,000 tanks and had increased by 100% the number of planes made by manufacturers. One of the differences, as far as not a repetition of history, the American armaments, the manufacturing sector does not seem to be able to keep up with the demand of the war. And that's another really important detail to keep in mind. Like, the Americans can lie all they want about how the war is going, but eventually they're going to have to tell the truth, because they're not producing the ammo, the weapons fast enough to actually win the war. So they're going to lose at some point, and they're going to have to tell the truth at some point. So even though they never do. But not only did the German industrial sector produce more of everything, but also they produced more advanced weaponry. The Germans had developed new tanks such as the Tiger, King Tiger, and the Panther tanks. The Luftwaffe, German Air Force, had the new Fokker Wolf fighter. Since the loss of North Africa, Germans could concentrate most of their army on the Eastern Front. The Allies' failure to open up a second front allowed Hitler to station 2/3 of the German army in Russia by the spring of 1943. However, the new weapons and extra manpower caused the German high command to engage in over-optimistic planning. There's another parallel, maybe, that having all of this advanced AI and all these, satellites and everything, I think it created an over-optimistic planning atmosphere for NATO. They really believed that they were the superior white race that could prosecute any war that they picked with anyone, and they would always win, even though they've lost basically every war that they've tried to fight in my lifetime. And anyway, their new weaponry assumed that they could inflict a serious defeat on Stalin and led them to underestimate their enemy. So that's that. Let me see how you guys are doing. Hello, old man Barker. I don't really see you there, but I see someone saying hi to you. So. Yeah, Jacqueline says she wants to learn about the history they don't want us to learn about. So I appreciate that my time spent on the historical stuff is not too boring to people. I maybe could figure out, should try to take some kind of courses or something and be able to like, I don't really know how to write an article or anything. Like, I could maybe be a little bit more concise with my presentations and stuff. I don't really know what to cover sometimes, right? So where are we here as far as what did I want to cover? We're already in 1 hour and 40. I'm going to just quickly, I got one other topic I want to talk about, which is Bangladesh. Bangladesh's Balancing Act abrogated because they were really trying very hard to balance themselves between China and India and the US. And we all know that's really the only thing that these smaller nations can do. It's this, I think the term is Finlandization. They're the large power neighboring countries kind of take away their ability to make their decisions in their own best interests. And the only way for them to be able to continue to make their own decisions in their own interest, is to try and play this game of people, of the superpowers playing them off against each other, and eventually that always ends in disaster, kind of. So, because the bigger bully will just hit you with a big club on the head, and you'll get knocked out. So, I was gonna cover this article, but before I get to that, just a little bit of a tease there of the headline. I wanted to talk about. I saw this video and I felt I had to talk about it because we got real credible accusations of genocide. We got indictments being called for by the UN for Netanyahu and nothing happening, and then they're going and inventing accusations of genocide against the Soviet Union in the Holodomor and stuff, and they're inventing the Uyghur genocide narrative. And here they go. They have these shameless motherfuckers. They're going to go in and invent a genocide accusation for the Bangladesh ex-prime minister. I don't even understand how the hell you could even, where the hell does that come from? But they'll say anything to anyone these days to get whatever they want. So let me just play this video here.
Focus to Bangladesh now, where ex-Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's extradition remains uncertain. High drama unfolded in the streets of Dhaka. Hundreds of student protesters and political activists assaulted suspected supporters of ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. A mob wielding bamboo rods and plastic pipes attacked several suspected supporters of Sheikh Hasina. They vowed to quash a rumored rally for the ousted Bangladesh premier outside her childhood home. The face-off comes on the 49th death anniversary of Hasina's father, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Remember, Mohammad Yunus's led government, the interim government, cancelled the national mourning day observed by the previous government.
We are here to guard our revolution so that it doesn't slip out of our hands. We learned that the fugitive and dictator ex-premier Sheikh Hasina has ordered her goons and militia forces to come to the site so they can produce a counter-revolution in the name of paying respect to Dhanmundi.
Meanwhile, Bangladesh, the International Crimes Tribunal, has launched a probe into Sheikh Hasina and 9 others on charges of genocide and crimes against humanity. The case relates to the student protests against her government from July 15th to August 5th. The complaint filed on Wednesday includes allegations against Hasina, Awami League General Secretary and former Road Transport and Bridges Minister, former Home Minister, and other key figures from the party. A team of UN experts will visit Bangladesh next week to investigate the killings of the protesters ahead in the aftermath of Hasina's resignation as the Prime Minister just last week. Meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed concerns over attacks on Hindu and other minorities in Bangladesh.
बांग्लादेश में जो कुछ भी हुआ है उसको लेकर पड़ोसी देश के नाते चिंता होना मैं इसको समझ सकता हूं मैं आशा करता हूं.
So I don't know what he's saying there now. I guess I thought there were subtitles for, but I guess I don't see them anything. But that's basically it. They're really just I think the only reason why they're doing this, they know they don't actually have a case, but they're willing to throw around the word genocide so that they can try and devalue it. You know, if everyone's committing genocide, no one's committing genocide. So it's really just political cover for Israel for them to be, you know, they have someone that they've thrown under the bus here, and they're going to squeeze as much from this lemon as they can get. So as far as what's happening, a lot of people see a color revolution like this and then they want to support it. And so it's kind of important to try and, how much do we actually know about Bangladesh? I don't really know anything about this country kind of thing. And so I was doing a little bit of research on it today. You know, it's unfortunate that we tend to only learn about a culture when bad things happen to it. But with the war across the border in Myanmar, I think this region of the world deserves to be talked about a little bit more. So I'm just going to do a little bit of quick coverage on it. I only got, I think, Sorry, having a bit of audio difficulties there. I don't know if you guys missed what I was saying. Seeming to have a little bit of a connection issue, so I'm hoping I'm back here. I was just saying I don't want to get caught up on this. Maybe we'll be able to talk about it more again next week or something. I just wanted to report on it quickly because it's happening, and yeah, so there's also before I get into this, RBN did an interview with a guy called SL Kanthan. That was a good interview. I was watching it. I found that Kanthan had a really good perspective, really insightful, educated opinion, not opinion, but he brings facts. He helps explain the situation quite concisely, right? So go ahead and check those guys out. Go to their page. I'm sure you'll be able to find that interview quite easily. So, why Bangladesh's India-China balancing act is becoming increasingly difficult. Bangladesh's dilemma underscores the challenges faced by smaller nations and regions dominated by competing powers. So this was written in updated July 12th, 2024, and that I find not becoming increasingly difficult, has become untenable, as we have seen, resulting in this fake coup, whatever. Well, it's a real coup, but fake revolution. So Bangladesh's foreign policy features a careful balancing act between the two regional powerhouses, India and China. Aimed at maximizing economic benefits while maintaining strategic interests, this policy has been put to the test in recent years. However, the outcomes of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's visit to China this week, her fifth as PM and the first in 5 years, suggest that the balancing act may not be yielding the anticipated results, particularly meeting expectations from Beijing. This is by IndianExpress.com, so a grain of salt as far as the source of this information. It seems to be having a Indian bias. So, economic ties. Bangladesh-China relations have been primarily driven by economic cooperation, with China being Bangladesh's largest trading partner for 13 consecutive years. By 2023, Chinese investments in Bangladesh reached $3.2 billion, making it the country's second largest source of foreign investment. China's contribution to infrastructure development is significant. It includes 7 railway projects, 12 highways, 21 bridges, and 31 power stations. These have bolstered Bangladesh's infrastructure development and economic growth. However, the relationship's evolution suggests a more complex picture, challenging the notion of a well-balanced foreign policy. I think actually Bangladesh, after reading this article earlier, I think they've done a really excellent job of benefiting from economic and political cooperation with both their neighbors, India and China. And if it weren't for outside external forces like the elephant in the room of the American hegemony there, they would probably be a lot more capable of prosperous, interconnected development between all 3 nations here. But, we'll see what happens. So, recent initiatives. This week's visit has resulted in the signing of 21 instruments, including 3 renewed memorandums of understandings, with the relationship elevated from a strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership. While appearing positive on the surface, it raises questions on the practical implications for Bangladesh's relationship with India, the other regional player. So as far as why would a color revolution need to take place, it might be that Bangladesh, in elevating and improving its relations with China, is a step too far for the Americans. It's unacceptable. So you're not allowed to have, autonomy and sovereignty and make your own decisions. You must be a vassal. So, during the visit, Chinese Premier Li Qiang announced $1 billion in economic assistance as Prime Minister Hasina invited increased Chinese investment in Bangladesh's special economic zones and the Bangabandhu Industrial Park, allocating an export processing zone specifically to Chinese investors. PM Hasina also attended a trade and investment summit where 16 memorandums of understandings in sectors like textiles, electric vehicles, solar power, and financial technology were signed, with nearly $500 billion investments resulting from 4 agreements. China's commitment to continue zero tariff treatment for 98% of Bangladeshi goods beyond 2026, support for Bangladesh's development initiatives, and encouraging Chinese investments in various sectors indicate an intensifying economic relationship. These developments, coupled with China's mediation in the Rohingya refugee issue, highlight the increasing depth and breadth of China-Bangladesh relations, potentially complicating Bangladesh's efforts to maintain a balanced approach between China and India. I feel like there is no reason to be concerned about Bangladesh's increasing cooperation with China, even from India's perspective, because what they are doing is bringing stability and economic cooperation to the region, as opposed to trying to create divisions and strife. So. And it's not like, if you read on further, it's not like they're not making deals with India too that benefits India as well. It's just that the one player that really loses out in all of this cooperation is the Americans. So, and another thing, just kind of, I'll quickly, I wasn't going to read this one. I just wanted to share this tab and point out that India and China were holding talks to end this border dispute that they had a couple of years ago. I think it was been already by now. They had a concern about potential war breaking out between India and China over this Arunachal Pradesh area. And so that is kind of a little piece to this puzzle that should be kept in mind. Oh, that's not the right one. Yeah. Let me just make sure you guys you're able to hear me and everything. All right, cool. Yeah, Jacqueline. Too much shite going on in the world right now. Hard to keep up. Yeah. That's where I feel as difficult as it is to keep up. I will I'll do what I can to share with you this resource here, and if it's hard to keep up at the moment, at least if we create this content and it's not scrubbed from YouTube, it'll be there for people to go to when they have time to keep up with it. So yes, you're about to ask if the Bangladesh situation was a color revolution. I would say my opinion is unequivocally yes. I think not really even just about opinion. I think if you talk to people who are in the know, who are not lying to you, they'll tell you it's a color revolution, right? There's no ambiguity, no ambiguity there for me. So let's just wrap up here so I don't get wasted time. So, navigating through South Asia's complex geopolitical landscape, Prime Minister Hasina showed a notable tilt towards India with 2 visits to New Delhi in rapid succession. Her presence at Prime Minister Modi's swearing-in ceremony on June 9th, followed by a 2-day state visit within less than 2 weeks, underscores growing ties between the neighbors. A flurry of Indian engagements occurring before Hasina's planned trip to Beijing suggested a calculated prioritization of Bangladesh-India relations. That does not, to me, sound like a prime minister that is incompetent and that is like throwing their people under the bus. It seems like, with whatever flaws, I'm sure she's some kind of liberal in her own way, that this Prime Minister Hasina was doing her duty as best of her abilities to actually provide for her people there in her leadership position, and that threat of a good example is always too much for the Americans, So, regional dynamics and water diplomacy. Moreover, the Beijing visit occurred against a backdrop of regional tensions over territorial disputes and resources. The Teesta River project has emerged as a critical test of Bangladesh's ability to manage its strategic positioning with the 2 Asian giants. India's recent proposal to finance the Teesta River restoration and management project comes against the backdrop of China's existing offer of financial and technical support for the same. So as you can see, they are trying to be fair and balanced. Shout out to fair and balanced. They're trying to not just give China everything that they're asking for and let China dominate their economy by balancing their offers to the Indians as well as the Chinese. They are able to stake out some autonomy of their own, right, and get some benefits. So This development has brought the competing interests of Beijing and New Delhi into sharp focus, potentially setting the stage for increased regional rivalry, which there would not be as much regional rivalry between Beijing and New Delhi if New Delhi were communist like Beijing. Okay, that would be a world to see. I would be like we would have a quantum leap, I think, in everything if the two most populous nations in the world were communist instead of India, for whatever reason, after gaining its independence, feels the need to continue to be a cuck of the West and to push this capitalist economics that's not economics at all. It's just bullshit, whatever. Like, I really think it has to do with the caste system and eugenics and Hindu fascism there, but that's another topic for another day. So, Bangladesh Foreign Minister Hassan Mahmood's statement that Bangladesh would prioritize considering India's proposal, given that the Teesta is a river that runs through both Bangladesh and India, underscores the delicate balance that the former has to maintain, weighing geographical proximity and historical ties with India against the economic leverage with China. The project is not just a matter of water resource management, but a litmus test for Bangladesh's ability to navigate the complex waters of regional geopolitics while safeguarding its national interests and maintaining cooperative relations with both giants. The characterization of India as a political friend and China as a friend for attaining development encapsulates the nuanced approach Bangladesh has attempted to maintain. This distinction may become increasingly difficult to uphold as geopolitical tensions rise and economic interests intertwine with domestic politics and resulting difficult strategic choices for Bangladesh. I'll just finish this paragraph and then I'll move on because running out of time here, so I don't want to keep you guys any longer. So, prior to Bangladesh's recent elections, China advocated non-interference in Bangladesh's domestic affairs, a veiled message to the U.S. and its allies to refrain from interfering in Bangladesh's internal politics. Similarly, India articulated a nuanced position on Bangladesh's democratic process during the high-level 2+2 foreign and defense ministerial dialogue last September with the U.S. Indian Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra, during a post-dialogue press briefing, stated, "The election in Bangladesh is their internal matter, and it is for the people of Bangladesh to decide their future." Isn't that right, America? Just like how the election in Venezuela is their internal matter, and it is for their people to decide their future, right? Focus on your own, mind your own business. In a way, this echoed the Chinese position in support of the incumbent government, but these seemingly supportive declarations from two rival powers have also created a challenge for Bangladesh's foreign policy at the intersection of competing regional interests. The other thing I would point out as far as trying to make up this big argument that there's this huge challenge between the rival powers is I wonder how much it's in India's best interest to appear, as far as the Americans are concerned, to be a big rival power here, but with their position in BRICS and their cooperation with Russia and Russia's cooperation with China, I wonder how much India's supposed rivalry is something of a balancing act, something of a just a projection, just pretending to be against them, right? What makes me feel like they genuinely are trying to kind of avoid cooperating with China and Russia in India is this fascist, supremacist movement in India that people in the West don't really know or talk about because it's hard to understand. We don't understand the culture. So yeah, I could keep. I guess there's only one more. This is the last last paragraph from the article is over, so I'll just finish it off. The tricky road ahead. Bangladesh's Indo-China Balancing Act is increasingly encountering unforeseen challenges. While economic cooperation with China has brought development dividends, it has also raised concerns about debt dependency, which is the joke, right? Because the next thing I'm going to pivot to, I'm going to talk about de-dollarization, Bangladesh's efforts to do that, and IMF's interest in Bangladesh, right? So there's the real debt dependency. The evolving geopolitical landscape in South Asia and the Indo-Pacific region has made Bangladesh's neutral stance increasingly difficult to maintain. The country finds itself navigating complex issues like regional security, water rights, and economic integration, with potential to strain its relationships with the two giants. So we all know that the climate change is really forcing nations with water shortages and stuff to make decisions whether they like it or not, right? Whether the Americans like it or not. So that's also something to keep in mind. As Bangladesh moves forward, it may need to reassess its foreign policy strategy, as striking a perfect balance between India and China may prove impossible. A nuanced approach that prioritizes Bangladesh's long-term interests while maintaining flexible issue-based alignments could be more effective. Bangladesh's dilemma and experience underscore the challenges faced by smaller nations in regions dominated by competing powers. Among others, it will require astute diplomacy, economic diversification, and a clear vision of national interest to navigate the complex waters of regional and global geopolitics in the 21st century. So I probably didn't quite need to finish off that paragraph. I just felt that I wanted to. So, yeah. Well, you're welcome, Sean. I'm glad that I could inform someone on something, because I often feel like I don't know shit. So it's always good to, being informed and being intelligent is not a bad thing. So. I don't know what this is about. Jacqueline says, has the news about the huge data breach of SSN been shown in the U.S. mainstream media, or are they suppressing that news just like the UK? I don't know. I've been busy preparing the show, so feel free to check that out, anyone. I'm sure that'll be breaking news in the next few hours or days. So thanks for sharing that, Jacqueline. I'm running out of time. I'm already a few minutes over here. So I'll just share these headlines to just kind of put the nail in the coffin as to, was this a color revolution? Bangladesh was making moves to de-dollarize, and that doesn't just mean with the yuan. It also is with the Indian rupee. Okay, so there's this. There's agreements for Bangladesh to de-dollarize using the rupee, and there's agreements for Bangladesh to de-dollarize using the Chinese yuan. And there is the IMF that wants to sink their claws into them, okay, saying that it is fully committed to Bangladesh after protests. Okay, so that's all I'm going to share, those headlines there. And that's, hopefully, good enough show for you guys. I should try and think of any announcements and shout outs here. I think a good channel to check out to see what they're going to come out with for this Bangladesh info. I already mentioned Brian Berletic. He's got a channel called The New Atlas. He's probably a good resource for this. And Carl Jha, I think his podcast is called. Sorry, I'm blanking on it at the moment. I know it. I knew it. It's like the Silk Road podcast. I don't know. Hopefully, one of you guys maybe knows what it is. You'd be able to let me know. But Carl Jha, ZHA. Okay, check him out. He's a good Chinese. A lot of us can hear about China without hearing from a Chinese person about what they think about China. So check out Carl Jha. Yeah, and then as far as our own shout outs, always please check out Civilian Discourse, Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. And the Tin Rabbit podcast, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and Black Athletes in Politics on Tuesday. I did that out of order with Toshmit. Please support her. She's just getting started, and she could really use an audience to help her gain her confidence, and I'm sure she'll do great if we give her a chance, right? Just like any of us, just because you don't have the skills doesn't mean you can't gain them, right? So give people a chance, right? And noteworthy, 6 p.m. Eastern, we'll be back next week. I'm not sure what we'll talk about, but yeah, have a good night, everyone. Please don't give up. Right, be there for each other. And free Palestine, I guess. Free Bangladesh. You know, free Russia. Everyone, free the world. Okay. All right. Have a good night. Let me see. Don't really actually have a video to close out with. Maybe I can try and quickly look for something. Whatever. I don't really have anything, so I'll just do a cold out and have a good night, everyone. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.